Hello, hello, it's Kat here. I'm gonna try to keep this short as I'm running a bit of a cold if you can't hear it. But today I was gonna just show you guys a little experiment I did because I am trying really, really hard not to buy a bunch of stuff every time I make a project, which was part of the reason I was not getting things done because I would always miss buying something and I wouldn't start until I had it. So I'm trying to be thrifty about how I go about doing some of these things right now until I get some more projects done. That being said, I had a lot of yarn, and the techniques I'm going to show you now on how I made some sewn yarn wefts are very much in the same way Mozekyto has shown how to make yarn wefts with glue. The process is largely the same, there's only a couple of differences. So in an attempt not to actually spend any more money than necessary, I looked through my yarn stash, and I also looked through my mom's yarn stash and found several options that I needed for the idea I had. But none of them were the suggested yarn from the Mozekyto tutorial. And I was also trying to save time originally and have been kicking around this idea, so I just grabbed them and decided to try to make some sewn yarn wefts. Okay, for this project you're going to need scissors, measuring tape or a measuring board. If you do the Mozekyto tutorial, you'll have a little board already prepared for cutting yarn. And your yarn, you'll need either bulky or super bulky yarn, so I would recommend the bulky. Now, depending on how much aid you need, you'll either need paper, tape, or if you're very handy with your sewing machine, you won't need anything at all. So to get started, as you can see, I'm doing the novice version of this because by now I sew my wefts without anything. I just measure out my yarn and then sew it through the machine. But here you can see me marking on the paper so I can see where my yarn needs to end and where the center point is, because the yarn tends to move around a lot when you're trying to handle it. And when I was working on this, my sewing machine was not right next to where I was recording, so I really needed the help to figure out where to lay it down and so on. You're going to want to figure out how long you want your wefts to be. Keep in mind, longer than 5 inches of the yarn will start to fall apart and your weft will be kind of pointless after that. So you take that length and then you double it and cut your yarn that length. You're going to be sewing down the middle at this point, and you're going to want to sew down the middle and then move a little bit to the left and move a little bit to the right and sew again and again, so that essentially you will have 3 sewn lines when you are done. So now that the yarn is all sewn together, you can go ahead and start making it actually look like a weft. You need to unwind the yarn, which for the super bulky, this is really easy. For the bulky yarn, not as much, but still pretty easy. So after you get that all unwound, you're going to want to take a comb. You can either use a regular comb, a fine tooth comb, or I think the palm thing that I'm using is a scalp massager. What you do not want to use is the dog comb that the Mozekyto tutorial suggests. I found that it tears up the yarn beyond use. So a bonus is that it will actually comb out faster. I love this being such a time saver, I really do. There are some drawbacks which I will mention at the end, but I really think if you're short on time and you have a sewing machine, this is the way to go. If you use something to help you stabilize the yarn, now is the time to remove it from that. And then you can go ahead, if you have your flat iron ready. This yarn burns a lot faster, so you don't want to take as long as you would if you were following, say, the Mozekyto tutorial. After that, all you have to do is cut on the center stitch line, and there you go. You have your yarn wefts that are ready to use. Now, I know I listed glue on the project list. That's because if you're nervous about your yarn weft coming loose, which I was, I glued the ends to make sure it didn't go anywhere. And if your yarn weft comes out a little too loose, when you glue it on, just bunch it up together and you'll have no problem whatsoever. So you've stayed for the experiment. Thanks. So you heard me mention before that the dog comb rips up the yarn. This is what I'm talking about. I wanted to see if I could get longer wefts, and I really can't. I mean, I guess the 5 inches is the best you can get with just about any yarn, but the dog comb just shredded it, even ignoring the 5 inches. So when I first started this out and this little experiment, I was making it super hard for myself. And obviously 3 or 4 or 5, 7 tries in, I finally figured out what I was doing and how to go about it. You can see here, I was actually cutting the weft to size, like say the 5 inches, then unwinding it all and then putting it all together, which does make a thinner yarn weft. If that's what you're looking for, this is how to get it. It'll just make it so nice and thin, and it's great. Those wefts I actually had to double up anyway when I used them, but that is the first try of my prototype for the Sewn yarn wigs. It didn't work out that great. That also being said, I started out with super bulky because it was the color I wanted, and that's what I had. I was trying not to buy anything else. Super bulky is a bad idea. You can comb it and comb it and comb it and comb it, and it will never be done shedding. That's why I recommend bulky. That being said, because it's a doll wig, I know people are only going to comb it so many times. So if you don't really mind the shedding on like the super bulky, use it. Otherwise, really stick with bulky. It'll work better. It still sheds more than say the glued method, but I think that's also more to have to do with how the yarn was woven and less about it being glue versus sewing. So the last little bit I want to share is this tutorial is made with the idea that you're making your wefts as you're making this project, not sitting and waiting and letting it be in a box or something. So if you plan to save your wefts for later, what I found works really good on what I did is I did a double stitch of straight lines. And then I took it off. If you're using the 8, I took it off the paper, and then I used the tails of the straight lines to pull it through the machine and do a zigzag stitch. It makes a firmer hold for the weft so that it doesn't pull apart. And it's also the way I would do it if you plan to do like a sewn wig, because the single stitch is not going to be enough. And also for comparison, here is a weft done with the Mozekyto tutorial using the suggested yarn and the wefts that I've done using the bulky yarn. Hi guys, if you like what you saw and you want to see more, don't forget to like or subscribe to the channel. If you want to see what we're working on before we get it out, check out the sneak peeks on Instagram, or just follow us on Tumblr. Thanks for watching!